Welcome to Mr. Night Media.
Rachel had always been a creature of habit. On nights when she worked late, she relied on food delivery to save her from the hassle of cooking. It was convenient, easy, and she didn't mind the small talk with delivery drivers, who were always polite and professional. But that night was different. She hadn't planned on ordering anything, but as the clock struck 10:30 p.m., a sudden craving for comfort food hit her. She opened her favorite food delivery app and scrolled through the options, eventually settling on a Thai restaurant she hadn't tried before. She ordered her usual pad Thai and spring rolls. A delivery time of 30 minutes flashed on her screen. Perfect. Half an hour passed, and right on time, her phone buzzed with a notification. Your driver is approaching. She hurried to the door when the bell rang, opening it to find a man standing there, holding the familiar brown paper bag of food. "Hi, thanks so much," Rachel said with a smile. The man smiled back, but it was a little too wide, a little too long. He handed her the bag without a word, his eyes lingering on hers, his smile never fading. Rachel felt a small chill, but she brushed it off. Maybe he was just having a long night. She closed the door, locked it, and settled onto the couch to enjoy her food. The pad Thai was delicious, and soon she was caught up in her late-night TV show binge. Hours passed, and by midnight, Rachel was ready to call it a night. Just as she was about to turn off the TV, her phone buzzed again. Another delivery notification. Your driver is approaching. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't ordered anything else. Confused, she opened the app, thinking there had been a mistake. But there it was, a new order, identical to the one she had placed earlier, and already marked as delivered. "What the hell?" Rachel muttered to herself. Before she could investigate further, the doorbell rang. She cautiously approached the door and peered through the peephole. The same man stood outside, holding the same brown bag. Her stomach dropped. Had there been a glitch in the system? Did he accidentally pick up another order for her? Against her better judgment, Rachel opened the door, just a crack this time. "You delivered earlier, right?" she asked hesitantly. The man nodded, still smiling that eerie, unnatural smile. Rachel stared at him for a long moment, the unease from earlier now swirling into something darker. She was about to tell him there had been a mistake when he extended the bag toward her. She didn't move. I didn't order anything else," Rachel said, taking a small step back. The man's smile widened, if that was even possible, and his eyes seemed to gleam in the dim hallway light. "Your order," he said in a voice that was just a little too flat, a little too rehearsed. "It's here." Her pulse quickened. Without another word, she slammed the door shut, locking it quickly. Her breath came out in short gasps as she backed away from the door, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Minutes passed, and finally she heard the sound of footsteps receding down the hall. Rachel ran back to her phone, opening the app again. The order was still there, listed as delivered, but there were no payment details, no trace of her placing it. She stared at the screen, bewildered and scared. Maybe it was a bug, something in the app malfunctioning, but it didn't explain the driver, the same man, delivering the same order twice. She called the customer service line, hoping for an explanation, but after being on hold for what felt like hours, she gave up. The following morning, Rachel woke to the sound of her phone buzzing again. Still groggy, she reached over and squinted at the screen. "Your driver is approaching." No, she shot up in bed, dread crawling up her spine. She hadn't ordered anything. She knew she hadn't. A loud knock echoed from the front door. Rachel froze. This time she didn't bother checking the peephole. She knew who it was. But why? What did he want? Her heart raced as she backed away from the door, hoping he'd leave like last time. But the knocking continued, louder, more insistent. "Your order," the man's voice called from the other side, a sing-song lilt to his words now. Rachel grabbed her phone and dialed the police, her hands trembling. As she spoke with the operator, she heard the knocking stop. Silence filled the apartment, but she wasn't relieved. Instead, her eyes darted around the room, the hair on the back of her neck standing up. "He's still here." The police arrived in 15 minutes. By the time they got to her apartment, the hallway was empty. The officer, kind but skeptical, took down her statement. There wasn't much they could do without a crime being committed, and the delivery app was no help. Over the next few days, Rachel stopped using the app altogether, too unnerved by the experience. She even changed her number and moved her food orders to a different platform, but the notifications didn't stop. Every night, at 12:30 sharp, her phone buzzed with the same notification: your driver is approaching. No matter how many times she changed her phone, deleted the app, or called customer service, the orders kept coming. And each time she checked the peephole, the same man stood there, his smile growing wider, his eyes darker. It was no longer about the food. He wanted her. It was a routine evening for Adam, a delivery driver who had become accustomed to late-night drop-offs. The app on his phone buzzed, directing him to an address that he hadn't been to before. He followed the directions through dimly lit streets until he arrived at a house that stood out from the rest. The porch light flickered weakly, casting long, jagged shadows over the yard. The house was dilapidated, cracked windows, peeling paint, and an overgrown lawn. But the app clearly marked this as the correct destination. His gut told him something was off, but he couldn't just leave. Hesitantly, Adam walked up to the front door and rang the bell. The sound echoed hollowly, as if it traveled through empty hallways. After a few moments, the door creaked open, revealing a frail, disheveled old man. His clothes were worn and stained, and his eyes seemed distant, hollow even, as if he hadn't seen another human being in a long time. "Ah, thank you," the old man muttered, his voice raspy and dry. He reached out with a shaking hand, took the food, and disappeared inside without another word. The door slowly closed behind him with an unsettling creak. Adam returned to his car, uneasy. Something about the old man's gaze clung to him, and as he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When he checked his app, a strange message blinked at him. Same order, new address. Confused, he clicked on the notification. It wasn't just the same order, it was the same name and timestamp, but now the app directed him a few blocks away. Shrugging it off as a glitch, Adam followed the directions to the second address. This house was different, newer, freshly painted, and well kept, with lights on in the windows. It was in stark contrast to the eerie house he had just left. He knocked, and a young woman answered, looking puzzled when she saw him holding the delivery. "Hi, I've got your order," Adam said, holding up the bag. The woman's confusion deepened. "We didn't order anything." Adam double-checked the app. "Isn't this 324 Elm Street?" "Yes, but we didn't place an order tonight. We just moved in last week," she explained, glancing at the house over his shoulder. "The previous owner, well, he passed away a couple of months ago. He lived alone." A chill crept down Adam's spine. "Do you know what happened to him?" Adam asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. The woman hesitated before replying. "They said he died alone in the house a few blocks down. It had been abandoned for years. Some people said it was haunted, but we don't really believe in that." Adam's heart raced as the pieces clicked together. The house, the old man, the delivery. His skin crawled at the thought of where he had just been. Without saying another word, Adam rushed back to his car. He opened the app again, but the previous delivery details were gone, as if they had never existed. As he drove away, he couldn't help but glance in his rearview mirror. For just a moment, he swore he saw the old man standing in the middle of the street, watching him. Adam's hands were gripping the steering wheel tightly as he drove through the empty streets, replaying everything in his head. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting the old man to reappear. The night felt colder now, the air heavy with an unseen presence. The flickering streetlights above did nothing to ease his growing dread. As Adam reached the edge of the neighborhood, his phone buzzed again, vibrating in the cup holder beside him. He hesitated before looking down. The same order had come through yet again. His blood ran cold. Same order, same name, new address. This time, the location was a house on the outskirts of town, a place Adam vaguely recognized but had never been to before. He pulled over and stared at the screen. He had no intention of delivering the food again. But as he debated what to do, the phone rang. Startled, Adam fumbled to answer it. He didn't recognize the number, but something inside compelled him to answer. "Hello?" His voice was shaky. "You forgot something," a low, gravelly voice said on the other end. Adam's heart raced. It was the old man from the abandoned house. What? He stammered. You forgot something. Come back. The voice was cold, unwavering, and then the line went dead. Adam stared at the phone in disbelief. Every instinct screamed at him to go home, to forget this night ever happened. But something drew him in, something beyond his control. His fingers trembled as he reopened the app and accepted the order. Last one, he told himself. I'll drop this off, and then I'm done for good. The new location was a few miles away, near the town's cemetery, in a part of the outskirts where the street lamps barely worked and houses stood far apart. As he drove, the air grew thick with fog, and the road became more isolated. The headlights of his car cut through the mist, but beyond that, there was nothing but the night. Eventually, the GPS signaled that he had arrived. He pulled up to a large, decrepit house that stood at the edge of a wooded area. It was more a ruin than a home. Windows shattered, the roof sagging, the front yard overtaken by dead grass and weeds. No one could possibly live here. Adam's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his knuckles turning white. Yet the app said delivered here. With a deep breath, he grabbed the food and stepped out of the car. His shoes crunched on the gravel driveway as he made his way to the front door, which hung slightly ajar. The wind moaned through the trees as he hesitantly knocked. There was no answer. "Hello," Adam called out, his voice barely above a whisper. Nothing but silence. He knocked again, harder this time, and the door creaked open with the force. Inside was pure darkness, but the faintest hint of movement caught his eye. Something shifted just beyond the doorway. "I have your order," Adam said, holding the bag out with trembling hands. Suddenly, a cold gust of air blew through the door, knocking the bag from his hands. The food spilled out onto the porch as a deep, guttural voice echoed from within the house. "You forgot something." The door slammed shut in his face with a loud bang, leaving Adam standing there, frozen, his heart pounding in his ears. In a panic, he turned and bolted back to his car. He didn't look back. He couldn't. As he sped away, the fog thickened, and the winding road twisted in ways that didn't make sense. No matter how far he drove, the scenery seemed stuck on a loop, as if the night was trapping him in its web. His phone buzzed again. Adam's heart sank as he dared to glance at the screen. The app flashed another notification. Same order, same name, no address. Suddenly, his car sputtered and came to a dead stop. The engine whined, but refused to start. Adam slammed his hands on the steering wheel, cursing under his breath visible in the frigid air. The mist around him seemed to close in, swirling with an unnatural weight. In the rearview mirror, he saw it again, a shadow, a figure standing in the road behind his car. It was the old man. He was closer this time, his figure clearer under the faint moonlight. His eyes, those same hollow eyes, glimmered with something Adam couldn't explain, something that chilled him to his core. The man's face broke into a twisted, sinister smile. Panicking, Adam locked the car doors, fumbling for his phone to call for help. But the signal was gone. The screen flickered, then went black. He looked up, and the man was gone. Just as Adam breathed a sigh of relief, a sharp knock came from the driver's side window. Slowly, with his heart pounding in his throat, Adam turned his head. The old man was standing right outside his car, face pressed against the window, his breath fogging the glass. "You forgot something," the old man whispered through the window, his voice distorted, echoing in Adam's ears, as if it came from everywhere at once. The phone buzzed in Adam's lap one last time, vibrating with an intensity that sent chills through his bones. He dared to glance down. "Thank you for your service. Now it's your turn." Before Adam could scream, the car door wrenched open, and the night swallowed him whole.